Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Tom's podcast here today. Today, we're back. It's the first time since Christmas. We're back. I'm joined with John, birthday cook. How you doing?
Word.
How are you? It's been 6 months.
I mean, it hasn't, has it?
Well, 5 and a bit months, 4 and a bit months,
It hasn't, has it?
4 and a bit months. It's been 10 years. I mean, since we've done a proper podcast,
It's been literally 6 weeks.
the rest of the ones aren't podcasts. They're reviews, they're videos, they're not podcasts.
No, no, they're previews. We did a WrestleMania preview. That is not a review.
But yeah, they're not podcasts. This is
Anyway,
the first.
when's the Twin Dilemma dropping?
Oh God, it'll come out. It'll come out. I need to heavily edit it because of how out of date it is. So I'm going through and trimming stuff. So it's going to be 30 minutes long. And it's just going to be the review because the rest of it does talk about new Doctor Who news that was relevant in November.
Yeah,
Therefore,
I was
doesn't.
going to say I wasn't aware we'd been sort of that. I wasn't aware we'd been that contemporary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot.
sitting there talking about Boris Johnson as Prime Minister and
Yeah, we were talking a lot about
Queen Elizabeth II.
Millie Gibson was just announced and all this sort of stuff, and then we just go on a tangent of things that are now incredibly wrong. With
Well, I think that I don't remember saying anything incredibly wrong when Willie Gibson was announced.
no, just incorrect about the
I
the future of the show.
might have thought a few incredibly wrong things. I don't think I said any.
I didn't mean it within that context, but
Right.
I just meant
Well,
we
literally like less than half my age.
yeah. Well, especially as well. Happy birthday!
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You know, recording on the birthday. John never stops on the grind. Of course, if you're new to the show, today we're going to be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. If you're watching on YouTube, you can clearly see John's background, which indicates
Yeah,
that. If you're listening
and I
audio,
mean, obviously our viewers and listeners are highly intelligent people, so they don't need us to tell them this. But if you have not seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and do not wish to have the film spoiled, maybe don't sit and listen to a review of it before you see it.
yeah, this is going to be full spoilers, full on. So yeah,
And use of bad language.
yeah, lots of it. So and maybe some words, maybe there's a frequent word we say on the show that isn't used in the movie that might be used in the show. Who knows?
We'll be using even worse language than they use in the film.
Yeah, that tends to happen on the show. It's pure filth. Um, so
It's cunt. He's referring to the word cunt.
I'm indeed, yes. It's now been said, so I guess we can move. We've got that 18 rating slapped in.
Not necessarily.
No, oh yeah, no, it's the context, isn't it?
Not necessarily. I've not said it aggressively. Um, and you had to look at the context of my use of the word, and I would say that the context of my use of the word was both informative and to act as a warning.
Yes.
So it was so yeah.
Therefore, we're on the balancing beam of a 15. Um,
We're currently within the 15 age bracket.
Sweet. Well, I think we should just jump into the film, mate. To be honest, I think there's a lot to talk about, a lot to discuss actually
Mm.
with this one. If you guys don't know already, me and Jen have reviewed the other two Guardians of the Galaxy movies. So if you go check those podcasts out, see us a bit younger, a bit a bit more full of life, go back on the channel. That both of them are on there, both of them are on the audio platforms. So if you do want to listen to us, natter on. And if you want to hear the review of the Guardian special, I lumped that with Black Panther, so that is on the channel as well. So yeah, let's just those are all your Guardians pre stuff before we get into this. You want to know our thoughts and feelings? John, I'm not going to let you do your regular breakdown of this because this film's a bit all over the shop in terms of plot and what's going on, and there's so many things happening at once. So I think it's just best if we jump into it. But I'll give a brief synopsis, essentially in this film. This is your last chance for spoilers, by the way, before I just go full ham. So if you didn't, you're done now. In
If
this
you, if
film,
you skip past us waffling earlier, bleep, 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 there will be spoilers from this point. So don't come fucking moaning to us like, hey, you spoilt the film for me. Because you have been repeatedly warned, and you're a bit of a fucking idiot if you're listening to a review of a film before you've seen it and you don't want to be spoiled anyway.
yeah. So in this film, film starts out and the Guardians are sort of doing their own thing on nowhere when suddenly Adam Warlock attacks and harms Groot, not Groot, Rocket, sorry. And unfortunately, the team can't fix him with med packs because there is a lock within his health system. And that means that the team have to go on a trip to try and discover where Rocket came from, find out how to fix him, and save his life. And essentially, it's a race against time and a race against some villains that we know as well, and some familiar faces pop up throughout the way. And of course, our main villain is the High Evolutionary, played by Chuck Udiawuji, who is fantastic in this movie as well. He is superb. And that's kind of the plot, really, isn't it, John? It's just basically it's to save Rocket's life. Is the basic bare bones of the movie. Is the team trying to save Rocket's life?
Yeah, I mean, essentially that is it. There's a lot more to it than that kind of thematically. I think the only other thing to add really is that we also get Rocket's backstory as part of this film. So
Yeah,
there are repeated flashbacks to how Rocket ended up with the biological chip inside him, what he was before he was a Guardian, etc.
yeah.
Um, as I say, that there's a significant amount of Rocket's backstory in there, which which is quite key to the plot.
But what do you want to tackle first? Should I tackle characters, plot? Where do you want to dive in on this one, John?
I mean, it's your podcast.
Yeah, I was just giving the offer out. I think I'll start with the overall thoughts on this one, John, before we get into nitty. I think this film is bloody fantastic. I think it's really, really good. It might be my favorite one of the three. And we're both quite high on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume Two and the first one. We love them both. But specifically Volume Two, I know me and you quite enjoy as the upper echelon of the MCU. This is up there for me. I don't know. It might be on the same level as Volume Two, but this is up there, man. I like genuinely the emotions I felt whilst watching this film. You know, the laugh, the joy, the sadness. It all got me, man. I don't know about you, but I think this film knocked it out the park.
Yeah, I make no secret of the fact that Guardians is my favourite strand of the MCU. Um, it's which is ironic because it's the one part of the MCU that I knew absolutely nothing about before they started making these films. I had no knowledge of the Guardians and the comic books or anything like that. So it, yeah, it's my favorite strand of the MCU. I absolutely adore the first two films, and I'll be honest, I completely adored this. There's a bit of a shift in tone. I think it's a darker film than the previous two had been. It covers some more serious issues. There are points at which it's bloody bleak. Um, because because we know that it's the end of the trilogy. There's like, I think any kind of threat is increased.
Yeah.
Um, because actually this is, I was kind of sat there thinking like we could genuinely lose beloved characters in horrible ways in this film. And there's a couple of points where they tease that quite, they play on that, and they make us fear for characters that we care about. Um, I think it's still got what we come to expect from the Guardians in terms of those themes of what it is to be a misfit and not to belong somewhere, what it is to be an outsider, the importance of togetherness, the importance of family, and family being actually anything. Family not necessarily related to blood, but sometimes being where you find yourself, where you find your people. Um, this also leans quite heavily into themes around eugenics and vivisection, which is even, not even just for Guardians, but for an MCU film, for a 12A, it's dark. There are some very nasty things that have gone on in the past, and we really kind of gut wrenching to the point where you really want this situation to be resolved. You really want the bad guys to get their comeuppance because of what they've done. And but obviously, in addition to that, you've still got the sort of standard Guardians humour. You've got the wonderful little jokes in there that lighten the touch at various points. There's just something very funny about a woman telepathically convincing a massive guard that he's in love with a guy like a 7-foot warrior in his pants. It delivered everything that it promised, and then more on top of that. I'm a very, very big fan of this film.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there with a lot of stuff. I think it right. Let's tackle it from backstory first. I think because that obviously helps the driving force of the stuff in the present. I think that's the way to go forward here. And unfortunately, the saddest part of the movie, but we're going to tackle it first and get through it. So, of course, throughout this movie, there were a lot of flashbacks to Rocket essentially being fucking tortured and how he came to be. And essentially, throughout a jump through of flashbacks, we at the start, it's just about Rocket, and we just see him kind of getting just dissected and chopped and changed around. He gets chucked in a cell, and suddenly we meet some people. I say people, some new animals. We meet a rabbit who will go on eventually to be called Floor. We meet a walrus, who I think it's a walrus, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, it's, a walrus who is called Teefs, and of course, everyone was looking for this. We meet Lila, of course, from the comic books. Everyone was kind of waiting for this one. Of course, had a romantic kind of connection to Rocket in the comic books. Obviously, Rocket's backstory is slightly different in the comic books than the way they went in this film, but um, yeah, and those kind of four people or four characters, sorry, are kind of our connection in these flashbacks. They're kind of our group, the people that we like in this. We just see them connect as buds throughout. And unfortunately, most of the flashbacks are interrupted in time by the High Evolutionary sending Rocket out to go do some science stuff. And at one point in the movie, High Evolutionary is showing Rocket one of his experiments is going wrong, and Rocket, without being taught it, knows how to fix the issue. And that surprises the High Evolutionary. And unfortunately, it's not a good thing. Essentially, it kind of spouts his downfall for Rocket because that now he wants to use Rocket for higher purposes and take his brain out and try and figure out how that happened. But yeah, what do you make of Four Teeths and Lila the Otter? What?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why they're there. I think they serve the purpose very well. At the same time, you're watching the whole thing and it's quite obvious what's going to happen with them because the
Yeah,
Rocket doesn't live very because it's a flashback. The Rocket doesn't live very, very happily ever after with these characters because that he finds himself as a guardian, and that he was pretty much alone when he found himself in that position. But no, I think there were nice scenes. I think they built up the bond quite nicely and made you sort of understand why he would be connected to them.
yeah,
Um, but I think at the same time there was always this thing in the back of my mind, but it's like, well, these characters aren't going to be around for very long.
yeah. And it's sort of, I was just buzzing to see Aston Chowdhury in an MCU film, of course, of Chibadi G fame here in the UK, voicing Teeds. Yeah, I think one of those things is I did agree with you. I thought, yeah, they're not going to be around very long, but the film kind of not tricked me, but I was so engrossed in their sort of friendship that I was still sort of shocked. I
Yeah,
haven't. I was like, oh, when eventually we do see Lila get shot in a horrendous moment where she's literally about to say it is good to have friend get shot by the high evolutionary. And then of course unfortunately Thor and Teed as well get caught in the crossfire. Um so Rocket decides to scratch a man's eyes out. Very brutally, but we'll get to that later on. But yeah, overall, just a really, really good use of the flashbacks. I think they really aided the film as well because at points it feels like you're seeing what Rocket is thinking about. It kind of goes away from that a little bit in the second half, but especially the first half of the film, it certainly feels like there is a synergy. You are watching what Rocket is thinking whilst he's in this, moment of bad health.
yeah,
Um, I think our next point to talk about is I think we should just go to High Evolutionary, who is fantastically played by Chuck Woodie, who is great. Obviously, he was in Doctor Who for a bit. That's where I know him from. In Doctor Who, he was in Peacemaker. He's been around a bit. Just fantastic, right? Possibly the best villain of the trilogy. I'm thinking it is. Does he beat Kurt Russell? I think he does beat Kurt Russell.
I would say so. I think, I mean, it's a less obviously it's a less prominent role
Yeah.
in this film than Kurt Russell's was in the second film, but I think that the nature of what's going on, the fact that this guy is an animal tester, that he is a eugenicist, that he is kind of effectively trying to, he ticks a lot of nasty boxes.
Yeah. I think as soon as you start, testing animals, you're already in good stead to be one of the biggest dickheads in the universe.
Yeah,
Um, I think that's just up there. But no, I think his performance is brilliant as well. I mean, especially when you consider that he's acting off Sean Gunn in a green suit for most of the movie. Um, he's doing a very good job. Like the scene with him laughing as Rocket's crying after he just shot Lila, it sticks in my head. I mean, that's a phenomenal performance.
yeah,
I also remember as well at the end of the movie where Rocket's trying to save the other raccoons. Um, and he's there as well. He's fantastic. He has this really good presence because obviously in the flashbacks at the start he's kind of calm and controlled, and then suddenly it all kind of goes a bit pear shaped. So yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think should we go to our Guardians for a bit? Should we have a little chat about our
yeah. Of
crew?
course.
Obviously Peter Quill, he's sort of here in this movie. His arc is sort of the Gamora thing leading on for Avengers Endgame. I think that's kind of where his thing is placed. I think Chris Pratt's always brilliant in these movies. Right. I think he's always very good as Star Lord. Don't get to see him wear the mask this time or the boots. So that's one thing that we don't see this time around. But
Yeah, I think it's a very I think it's a very strong performance. Let's not forget here that the Peter Quill that we are watching here it is essentially somebody who's clinically depressed.
yeah,
He's lost the love of his life, um, and he just doesn't know what to believe in anymore. By the look from the outside, he's traveling around with his buddies and gets to travel the galaxy, and it's all brilliant. But he's dying inside.
yeah. I think Chris Pratt shows that very well. I think it's because he's a very obviously he's our comedic lead really. When Drax comes in every now and then and says a joke but like Chris Pratt being the lead of the movie has to do the jokes and the serious. one thing I will say is his performance is so good. When we think we have lost Rocket on the bed and he's failing, and you just see him basically act with his mouth more than anything else, which it sounds weird. But when you watch the movie, you understand if you haven't seen it and you're still listening for some reason. And you just let out this roar of pain as you
Mm.
think he's lost his buddy. And they really do build up the relationship actually between Quill and Rocket in this, and they're like, oh no, we are best buds because obviously we don't really see them interact a lot, but they do have similar minds. And they obviously we saw in Guardians 2, they sort of have that, although they compete, they are very similar in that aspect. So it does work very well. Um, I'll save Gamora for last because she's kind of the most interesting and kind of different from where we last saw. Obviously Groot's pretty much the same. He's now Swole Groot though. He's very big, which is quite fun. Allows Vin Diesel to have a different pitch to his voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's all right. He's just chilling. He's Groot. We love it. Drax has a lot more in this movie actually than I was anticipating him to do.
I've always loved the interaction between Drax and Mantis. I think the way that the actors bounce off of each other, I think he's absolutely fantastic. Um, and so it's good that they get to go and do their little sort of side quests together in this. Um, and yeah, I mean, Drax is just superb. You know, Dave Bautista's just amazing in that role.
Yeah. Very funny. Has a really good stuff. Some really good stuff at the end of the middle of the second act, towards the end of the third act with the kids. Really kind of brings his story full circle. After obviously, never forget he lost his daughter before we met him at the start of the series. Nebula again. Well, she had a lot to do with Avengers Endgame, so she sort of does take a small backseat here. But James Gunn's very good at balancing the table and giving each character a moment or a small arc in this one, but she doesn't have as much to do as maybe the other two Guardians films. But that's because she had a lot to do with the Avengers Endgame arc, and that was sort of a big moment for her. So it's okay; it takes a back seat. Um, Kraglin's here with his arrow. He's just chilling. He's vibing. Same kind of thing with Mantis. Mantis again, like you said, similar kind of the back and forth of Drax.
Yeah.
That's kind of the
I
role
think
they found her to do
I
now.
think we get a fair bit of development from Kraglin though.
Yeah,
Yeah, in terms of, from where he is at the start of the film to where we are at the end.
yeah.
It's and there's a lovely little scene towards the end where he has where he has a vision of Yondu.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which gives him sort of the confidence to actually believe in himself and use his powers.
Use your heart, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. Um, of course, we have Cosmo the space dog who joins us for this adventure. Um, and yeah, she's great. Really cool
Yeah,
stuff.
she's fantastic.
Who doesn't love a space dog?
You're a good dog.
Yeah, who doesn't love a space dog with
Bad
you know?
dog. Who'd take
Yeah,
that bet?
yeah. And of course, Gamora in this film, who has become a Ravenger now. She's part of the Ravengers, which means that we do get a little cameo from Sylvester Stallone at one point. Yeah, she's okay. I think the issue is with Gamora at this point is that we knew that. I think because we spent three movies with the original one, and essentially one and a bit with this one, it's sort of I don't know. I felt that was the only part of the film that didn't work for me was the Gamora because the Gamora stuff for me a little bit. I felt that was
I,
the only bit that I kind of was like, oh, okay,
I'll be honest, it did work for me. It did work for me because it's kind of it's kind of this thing where obviously Star-Lord's got all of this baggage and she's completely unaware of it.
yeah,
Um, and it's and quite rightly she kind of says to him, "Look, I'm not that person. I'm a different version of that person, and I need to be myself. I can't be tied down by what your Gamora was or who she was."
yeah,
So I thought that there are some very clever sort of dynamics in there for that. Um, so yeah, it did work for me actually.
Oh, fair enough. Um, yeah, no, I just felt like they did a lot of the old. Oh no, she doesn't like being with the Guardians, but secretly she does. Next thing, oh no, she doesn't. I mean, oh, secretly she does. It's like, okay.
Well,
Um, but yeah, no. Apart from that, it's
she still ends up going off with the Ravagers in the end.
yeah, she does. But
You
she
know,
does say,
so it's quite a nice little, it's quite a nice little tease in there. I feel.
yeah. And then she goes, I bet we would have been. I bet we were fun.
Yeah,
Oh, it's very nice. All right, let's talk about our new characters. So we got Adam Warlock in this movie, played by the fabulous Will Poulter, who, yeah, he's essentially what he is in the comic books, just a man that can kick a lot of ass.
it's a massive gold bastard.
Massive gold bastard. I think he's brilliant.
Oh yeah, same here.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Very, very,
Um,
very nicely done.
yeah, I think very nicely done. Really, yeah, really good kind of villain to the Guardians. Has a really nice arc in the film, although it's quick. Obviously, because he doesn't appear too much within it. He sort of takes a break midway through the film. His
Mm.
arc with his mother Aisha from the second film, sorry, is very good and very well used. I thought.
Yeah.
Um,
And the fact that he comes to the rescue in the end, I think that's important.
yeah, with Blurp, I think it's called Blurp, his little furry animal creature friend. Yeah, I think it's really cool. I think his powers are cool. That action sequence on Nowhere at the start of the film's great
Oh yeah,
with him. Um, yeah, I think it's really cool. Let's talk about I think it's Ogle Corp that we did that segment of a film where we go and we have to retrieve a key.
yeah,
Really cool design, really cool design. Nice set piece.
I
Everything looks funky.
yeah, a really nice cameo from Nathan Fillion actually.
Yeah,
In this section of the film, especially the interplay between him and Star Lord, where it's almost like he's leading his own evil troop of guardians, and it's like yeah, there's always one guy, and
yeah,
it's yeah, it's very very cleverly done.
yeah. I've got that guy. This guy, love that guy. But this guy,
That poor
um,
guy.
yeah, he's brilliant. I love Nathan Fillion when he shows up. Obviously as well, we meet Ura, who of course is played by if you've seen the Suicide Squad, played by Domela McCaw, who played Ratcatcher 2 in that film. So a nice little another James Gunn cameo there for us, and she's brilliant as well. Star Lord kind of half seducing her, thinking, and everyone going, "Oh no, she isn't into you." Then she kind of revealed us to be slightly into him as well to give him a little brownie point. But no, just really fun fight sequence, and like you say, because this is the end of the trilogy, every kind of threat is heightened. So we see Drax kind of get doubly shot here. I thought that was him dead, to be honest.
Yeah,
I thought he died.
yeah, he literally gets two bazookas, one in the chest and one in the back, and it's like you ain't walking away from that.
But he does because
He
he's
does.
Drax.
He's
He's
Drax the Destroyer.
Drax.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, really cool. Really, just really good sequence. I think just really fun. I think that's one thing James Gunn's really good at is he's very good at using the camera in his fight sequences to make the fight feel alive and more heightened than what it already is.
yeah,
And I think especially when we get to the final act, there's a few cool moments within that we can discuss action wise. Um, but yeah, should we share a little chat about Counter Earth?
yeah. Let's go for it.
You know, obviously, what do you make of it? What did you make of all that kind of idea and that concept? The people, the
Well,
80s suburbia.
I liked it. I like the fact that it didn't take them long to kind of scratch under the surface and see that something was clearly not right.
Yeah.
I'd say I really like that. And it's I think it was a nice I think it was a nice section of the film.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was really cool. I think it was cool. A big moment for Quill. Some really funny moments as well with Drax on the sofa, and all that sort of stuff. And then this is where we get the first F bomb. in the MCU. Wonderfully done as well as they're trying to get in the car because we don't hear them very often in the or at all in the MCU. It's that actually made me laugh. I was like, what?
Yeah, quite
I was,
naughty.
yes.
I
And then
was not expecting it.
yes, like you know, I think it's just overall a really fun moment for the film. Then obviously we get into our final act where the our guardians, I say our guardians, Groot and Peter go up to meet the High Evolutionary.
Mm.
Um, and he gives his old villain speech about, oh, he wanted to make the world a perfect place, and you know this sort of stuff. And Peter's having none of it. We get Groot who can grow 8 arms and have 6 guns and shit like that. It's really cool. They finally managed to get the thing they need, the encryption key, and it doesn't work, or at least it doesn't appear to at first. Um, Heartbreaking, right? Like it genuinely tricks you to think they've not done it after
Yeah,
this hour and a half or hour and 3/4 or whatever, how far into the movie in the movie. You genuinely get tricked, and you're like, "There's no way, there's no way." Like we've just been. This is what the whole movie's been about, right?
yeah.
Um, and
It drags you in.
you go, "Oh shit!" You're there in sort of disbelief because you're like, "There's no way that they failed." And then we get this wonderful sequence, which where kind of Rocket appears to be in some kind of purgatory, and he's just chilling. And Lila appears to him and says, "Don't worry, we're okay. We've seen the sky. I hang out with my friends." Rocket says, "Well, can I come and join you?" And she
Mm.
goes, "Of course you can." He starts to walk, but she goes, "But not yet." Um, and then they have a little moment about him not being a raccoon. He gets sent back to Earth. He's alive again. Whew. My heart at this point in the movie, man. I was I was almost they almost got me. Um
Yeah, it's that bit certainly puts you through the ringer.
yeah. And then we get this wonderful one actually with Nebula where they're on the comms and Rocket starts talking and she breaks down. And I was reminded of this after I watched the movie that obviously those two spent 5 years together during the blip because they were the only two alive Guardians. So there's obviously a connection between those two there that we've just not seen.
Yeah.
I think as well. Didn't she get in Bucky's arm in the holiday special? Was it like the Christmas gift,
I think so. Yes. Yes.
which is a very funny reference to Avengers: Infinity War. Um, but yeah, I think now we can move on to our like final fight, which starts with a nice little hallway, Wanna, which is brilliant from James Gunn, possibly one of the coolest action sequence in the entire trilogy. That whole one shot of them down the hallway, played wonderfully to the Beastie Boys. No Sleep Till Brooklyn, which has appeared in 2 major films in the past month. If you want to go see the Mario film as well, it was in there. Um, and then essentially our Guardian's plan is to save all of the higher life forms on the ship. So they're going to bring the nowhere heads to the outskirts of the ship, save all the higher life forms, and get out of there. But unfortunately, Rocket can't do it. He goes past the room where he used to grow up, sees all the lower life forms, and in a wonderful moment, grabs all of the raccoons, and he is carrying every single one of them in what is the most triumphant moment in the trilogy.
What's also very nice about that is that the actual label at the top of the cage says raccoon.
Yeah.
So and there's this moment of acceptance that, in spite of the fact he spent 3 films saying he's not a raccoon, there's this moment of acceptance that he is, which I think is lovely, and that actually there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think that's nice. And unfortunately, it gets interrupted by that bastard, the High Evolutionary, who and so essentially Rocket starts the fight, and the Guardians end it. They all kind of have one punch or one jab at him, and it ends with Gamora literally ripping his face off. Which is kind of funny actually, because you realise that Peter Quill has been calling their whole interactions, "We're going to go do a face off," and it ends literally with a face off.
Yeah, it's not a
Um,
trap; it's a face off.
yeah, and Yeah, I mean that visual of his skull.
Yeah, they did well to sneak that into a 12A as well.
Yeah,
You know, this is quite a heavy film for a 12.
yeah, it's quite a hairy film, but I thought the end of the High Evolutionary, I thought it worked, Sean. I don't know about you. I thought the way they defeated
No, oh no,
him.
no, no. It's absolutely justified. It's absolutely justified. But I think that it's just noteworthy that of all of the strands of the MCU that you might expect to go darker, you wouldn't have necessarily expected it to be Guardians.
Yep, I can agree with that.
And you know, I mean, it does absolutely work, but it just takes you by surprise a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So now the Guardians are on full force of getting everyone onto the ship, animals and all. But unfortunately, as Peter's going, he drops the Zune, goes back to get the Zune, and unfortunately, it appears to be too late for him. He jumps into space, but he's stuck there, and he's literally bloating up. And that again, John, another moment, I was like, shit, shit,
Yeah,
shit, shit,
that
shit.
he's done. You know, he's done.
And then out of nowhere comes Adam Warlock to recreate that painting, which I don't know what the painting's called, but it's a very famous painting with the two fingers touching the gods. Really nice synergy. I don't know what it's called, but I know in my head I know what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, but you know, pass for me. My knowledge of art extends about as far as Van Gogh, and Monet, and the guy who did the Venetian stuff, Caravaggio. Caravaggio.
My knowledge of art is even lesser than that. Yeah. And Adam
Yeah,
Warlock
all
saved
of the sort of religious paintings and stuff. I've no interest in that.
Adam Warlock saves Peter Quill, and he ends it with, "Did that look cool?" Um, and then we're at the end of our film, and the
Yeah, he
Guardians,
kind of joins them for a group hug, doesn't he? Which sort of
yeah,
tentatively, which I like.
yeah, he's like, "What do I do here?"
You know,
Hug,
that everybody gets a second chance.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
And then at the end, we cut to a scene where the Guardians are all a-holes standing in a circle, which is a nice little callback to the first movie.
Yeah,
And Peter reveals that he's going to be leaving the team.
yeah.
He's off. Mantis is also leaving, and they appoint Rocket the new leader and captain of the
Which
Guardians of the
again is a
Galaxy.
very nice touch and a nice little callback because there've been moments throughout the MCU up until here where Rocket has regarded himself as being the captain and leader of the Guardians.
Yeah,
You know, so that it's a very nice little callback, and that made me happy.
yep. That was a good moment, I thought. And um, then we find out that Nebula and Drax are going to stay on Nowhere to help raise these new kids and this whole new animal colony they've got, make sure that everyone's okay, leaving Groot and Rocket, the only two members from the original lineup who stay within the Guardians of the Galaxy. And then as we get like a little interchangeable cutting, the team dance one more time to Florence and the Machine's Dog Days Are Over. Um, Fade to Black.
Even Drax is dancing. You know, the whole
Yeah,
the whole lot of are waiting for Drax to dance, and even Drax is dancing.
yeah.
It's probably important to note that Peter decides to actually go back and see his grandfather.
I was gonna
That's because it again it fits into the kind of the whole thing of family and found family and finding somewhere to belong.
yeah. Um, so there we go. That's the film. That
It is, and then we get a nice little sort of mid credit with our new
nuke,
Guardians, if you like.
which consists of Groot, Rocket, Kraglin, Adam Warlock,
Cosmo,
uh, Cosmo the dog, and one of the little girls that I don't
one of the little
remember.
girls, and she does have a name, and I looked it up and I can't remember what it is now.
So that's our new crew. I don't know whether this is just a nice little stinger. I don't know whether we're going to see these guys ever show up in a different film in some form.
I think it wouldn't surprise me if we get a sort of Guardians version 2.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, Will Porter's too good to have a one and done.
yeah,
So it wouldn't surprise me if there is a kind of Guardians version 2. Although, obviously what is interesting and notable about this is that nowhere does it feed into the overarching MCU stuff with Kang the Conqueror that is going on at the moment.
yeah,
So, that is of note because, obviously that was one of the things that I was interested to see, obviously with everything that's been going on with your man that plays him.
yeah.
Um, and thankfully they didn't need to cover it because it wasn't even a part of this film. So I don't know if at some point this was expected to be released slightly earlier in the schedule. I don't know, but it
But
it 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 clearly it was one that was done sort of. Well, actually, we can fit this in anywhere because it doesn't lead into the overarching stuff with Kang.
yeah. Our second post-credit scene is just Star-Lord sat down having some cereal with his granddad. And you can see on the newspaper, which is a nice little Easter egg, is Kevin Bacon abducted by aliens. He tells all, which is a nice
Yeah,
little reference there to
yes,
holiday special.
it is.
Um,
It is.
and then a screen flashes white with the text, "The legendary Star-Lord will return." So we know that Chris Pratt's coming back. He's the only,
Yeah.
he's the only one that we know is coming back. But now, my
And that
question to
that's
you,
probably and actually simply because of the sheer randomness and inconsequentialness of it, that's actually probably my second favorite MCU post-credit screen after Spider-Man: Homecoming, with sort of literally just Captain America giving a lecture about how sometimes you wait for something and it's pointless.
yeah, yeah, that was good. I like that. Yeah, yeah. But John, so obviously we know that Chris Pratt's going to come back as Star Lord. That's been confirmed to us. So you said that you think there might be another Guardians thing because
I mean, it wouldn't surprise you. I mean, they've set this up for us to have like a Guardians 2.0,
yeah,
which would be a completely different entity. It's been made very clear that this is a trilogy and this was the last film in a trilogy, but there's absolutely no reason why down the line at some point they wouldn't do a Guardians 2.0 with Rocket and Groot and all of your crew as are at the end of this. So with Adam Warlock and Kraglin, etc. Um,
yeah,
so I say no reason why they wouldn't do that. I mean, if this film does well, which I think everybody expects it to, because although Ant-Man didn't do as well as people had hoped, let's face it, that was Ant-Man and this is Guardians of the Galaxy.
yeah,
So I think if this does as well as people expect it to, then I certainly wouldn't rule out down the line having something with Guardians 2.0. Although Mantis has gone off to do her own thing, there was absolutely no indication that that was permanent.
yeah,
Um, obviously Drax and Nebula are still on nowhere, so were they to do another film, you could see a cameo from them quite easily.
yeah.
So I think it's yeah, I mean, maybe it's wishful thinking on my part. I don't know, and it won't happen for years if it does. But I just think that it's been set up that at some point we could get Guardians 2.0.
Yeah, I think the only person we're never going to see again is Zoe Saldana's Gamora, mainly because I think she said that she's done, and
Yeah, and
I think,
but got she got her ending, didn't she? So they sort
yeah,
of drew a line under that.
like you say, I think they've opened the door for Carrigan and Dave Bautista to come back if they can get them. And I'm sure a lot of them will come back for the Avengers, Kang Dynasty, and Secret Wars
Yeah,
stuff because
yeah,
you always get your notable characters and your fan favorites come back for that because
yeah. And it's
that's
it's pretty clear that Star Lord will be back. I cannot I cannot envisage them having a team up without Groot and Rocket
yeah, because they're
because
money.
they're very big fan favorites. Everybody loves Groot. Everybody loves Rocket.
Yeah,
And ain't no way that they're not going to be brought back into it somehow.
yeah. So
So
yeah, that
but yeah, I mean, this from the minute that this film started, and you heard the opening bars of Radiohead's acoustic version of Creep, I just knew that this was made for me and it was my film, and I was here for it.
yeah,
And it never let me down at any point throughout.
yeah. I have to say the same thing. I think from the beginning to the end,
Yeah.
there was never a bad moment in this film. It was pretty
Yeah, because
basically
nothing else in the MCU franchise can skip from pathos to fear to humor
yeah,
quite so readily, quite so quickly, quite so seamlessly
yeah,
as the Guardians films do. And I think probably because it's the boldest and the bravest that they've done, I think this probably is the best film of the trilogy.
yes,
Because actually it tries to be more than just your kind of action space romp, and it succeeds in that.
yeah, absolutely. I would agree. I have to say that I think this is the best Guardians film.
Yeah,
I've only seen it once. I might need to see it again to double check that. I'm fairly sure because I loved it so much the first time that on the second time
yeah.
it won't let me down.
And it's and that's not just because it's the only one that's got fuck in there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's because it's
The
it
first time
makes.
the first time we've had a fuck in an MCU film.
I'm just waiting for the. I'm waiting for the C word now. It
That's
never
not gonna
happened.
that's
It
not gonna happen.
never happened.
It's not gonna happen.
But wishful thinking.
Like even if you use it once very much in context, it's a guaranteed 15.
Maybe Deadpool will use it in his
I
R-rated
mean,
movie.
we would all. I mean, don't get me wrong. We would all love to see me join the MCU and just call somebody a cunt,
Yeah,
but it's not going to happen.
maybe Deadpool can drop one in his R-rated
I
third
like.
film. Yeah, that work. Deadpool can do it. That'd be nice. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole reason that Deadpool hasn't been part of the MCU, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not. It's not long now though. It's not long. It's not long. Is
Yeah,
that?
I don't. I mean, even Deadpool's never said cunt, has he?
I don't think it's not yet.
No, no. There's
Get on it, Ryan.
a lot of fucks. There's a lot of fucks.
Ryan, you've been in Wales a long time now. Surely it's got to influence the script a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of fucks about it, isn't it? Never seen a cunt.
Well, we can only hope. Right, John, I'm going to ask you some difficult questions now. Can you pop in order from 1 to 3 your Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy in terms of quality, please?
In terms of quality,
Yep.
it's probably reverse order. So number three top, number two second, and number one third.
Same for me. The even more difficult question: can you put in order the Guardians of the Galaxy or some mixes in your order of preference of tunage? Which has the better song? You're a big music man, so I thought I'd ask you this question.
I mean, there's only one that's got Florence and the Machine and Radiohead.
Yeah, so that's top again.
It's top again. Um, maybe for maybe maybe 3-1-2 this time. Maybe 3-1-2 this time. I do like the original Awesome Mix. So, but again, they're all strong. They're all bangers. But I think, yeah, maybe 3-1-2 this time.
I'd go 2-3-1. I think
Okay.
I really like the second one. You got Mr. Blue Sky. I'm a big fan of Brandy. You're a fine girl.
Is this because you know a girl called Brandy somewhere? It's
I
like,
don't know. I don't know a girl
you,
called
you
Brandy
see,
actually.
Brandy, you're a fine girl.
I know.
Hello there. Rather well done.
Oh God. No, I don't know Uncle Brandy. I think it's a tune. Southern Night. That's a bop.
Actually,
Um,
yeah, I forgot that was on there. That's good.
um,
Do like a bit of Glenn Campbell.
yeah, it's just obviously there's just so many flashlight, flashlight. Um, just all. I mean, all of them are
But
great.
then the volume one's got Hooked on a Feeling.
Ooga shaka, ooga, ooga, ooga shaka. Yeah. But there we go, guys. That's our review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That's it for us here today, guys. You can follow John at johnboy_cook on Twitter for some delightful tweets. You can follow me on Twitter, AlexKing_Dom. You can click the link tree in the description if you want to get more timeless podcast stuff. All the links to Spotify, Apple, it's all down there in the description box for you. You can
Including exclusive nudes.
no, that's not there. That's false advertising,
And
John.
why did you ask me to send them to you then?
It was for a different purpose. But anyway, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's on the screen for you now, and we'll see you guys all very soon. Hopefully, take care. Bye bye.
Hopefully it will be soon. Yeah, you need to get your ass into gear.
Yeah. Is there not a?
Good night.
Don't see.
God bless.
There we go.
Good night. God bless. Don't have nightmares. Do sleep well. I'm a creep. I'm a widow. What the hell am I doing here? I don't belong here.